Some modern skeptics have imagined Jesus' body was eaten by wild dogs, so the disciples willingly died for what they knew was a self-concocted lie. This claim fails since it contradicts the four gospel accounts, which have proven to be early, honest, and historically trustworthy. Also, according to Justin Martyr in Dialogue with Trypho, chapter 108, and Tertullian in De Spectaculis, chapter 30, the official story given by the Jewish religious leaders to explain the admitted empty tomb through at least the end of the 2nd century was Jesus' disciples stole his body. In contrast, the hostile contemporaries of Christ never promoted the thought he was eaten by wild dogs. Jesus' ancient critics certainly realize the actual state of affairs much better than any collection of modern skeptical scholars, and their word on the subject is clear. Further, none of the cowardly and despondent disciples would have been convinced to sacrifice their lives to spread the false message of a mere man who they could have and would have known was just consumed by dogs. They had scattered at Jesus' arrest, and according to John 20:19, nearly all of them were cowering in a hidden room during the crucifixion and immediately after the resurrection. The Gospels confirm the disciples did not understand or even want to believe the resurrection's reality. As implied by John 20:10 and 21:3, we have every reason to conclude these men were instead hoping to scratch out a living by returning to their former lives as they tried to forget about their fallen teacher, whom they had mistakenly followed for the last 3.5 years. It would have taken much more than a pile of scavenger-eaten bones to change their minds. Finally, it is inconceivable strong skeptics like Peter, James, Jude, Thomas, Saul, and countless Jews, including a great company of priests, would have decided to offer their lives for Christ amidst great persecution if he was simply dog food. Some critics have claimed, due to the large volume of crucifixion victims, the Romans simply tossed Jesus' dead body into an open pit along with other common criminals, though the disciples died for what they knew was a self-concocted lie. This theory fails since it contradicts the early written, honest, and historically trustworthy gospel accounts. Also does not explain how the cowardly disciples, Peter the denier, doubting Thomas, James, Jude, Saul, and countless Jews were inspired to literally offer their bodies as a living sacrifice to violent and politically powerful persecutors in an effort to promote the gospel message, which they admittedly did not understand or even want to believe until after Jesus' bodily resurrection. Further, the assumption of an open pit burial for all people crucified near Jerusalem was dealt a serious blow when archaeologists discovered in June 1968 the obviously crucified remains of an individual named Yohanan, clearly buried within a 1st century rock-hewn tomb. Additionally, this theory is inconsistent with a hastily concocted official story of the Roman soldiers and Jewish religious leaders documented in both biblical and non-biblical accounts, which states Jesus was buried in and stolen from Joseph of Arimathea's sealed tomb. So, according to even Jesus' ancient critics, the open pit theory has no basis. Finally, as Major pointed out, had the body of Christ merely been thrown into a common grave and left unattended, there would have been no possible reason for the anxiety of his enemies to spread the report that the body had been stolen. Instead of creating the stolen body theory, the Jewish religious leaders and Roman authorities would have simply exhumed Jesus' body or could have shown the location of the pit which he had laid in. This revelation would have permanently destroyed Christianity before it began. Another skeptical, swoon-related theory states the true gospel was encoded within the Dead Sea Scrolls. The supposed code cracker believes, according to their interpretation of the Dead Sea Scrolls, that Jesus was crucified by the Dead Sea in Qumran along with Judas Iscariot. Yet he somehow survived this ordeal through the voluntary consumption of drugs such as snake poison, no, I'm not kidding, and perhaps through successful bribery of the Roman soldiers guarding the cross. He was also aided by an unknown doctor who was purposely hiding in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb, where he nursed Jesus back to health. The doctor was assisted by Joseph of Arimathea, who was allegedly Jesus' uncle. Jesus then said goodbye to his disciples and retired to become a monk in Qumran, where he lived with his wife, Mary Magdalene, and perhaps another woman, such as Lydia of Philippi. He fathered at least one son before dying at age 80 while fighting the Romans during the Jewish revolt of 66 to 73 AD. This theory fails since none of these bizarre suppositions have any historical backing whatsoever. However, for the sake of completeness, here are a few more reasons to dismiss this hypothesis. First, Jesus did not even accept vinegar to deaden his pain, so it is extremely unlikely he took drugs to minimize his misery. Also, the cowardly and despondent disciples would not have been inspired to joyfully suffer and die while spreading the gospel message of a half-dead, recently drugged man, nor would have countless Jews, Gentiles, or skeptics like Peter, Paul, Thomas, James, and Jude. Finally, the truth, according to ancient biblical and non-Christian extra-biblical accounts, as well as modern medical experts, is Jesus really died in Jerusalem on a Roman cross during the reign of Pontius Pilate. We would be wise to trust the multiple honest eyewitness accounts given by Jesus' contemporaries far more than the outlandish and unfounded claims of any imaginative 21st century skeptic.